CEDAW now has been ratified by 186 countries. The U.S. is the only industrialized democracy in the world and only one of 7 countries that has not yet ratified CEDAW. We stand with the other countries, Iran, Nauru, Palau, Somalia, Sudan, and Tonga. So it is time for the U.S. to get on board and ratify CEDAW. It's been 30 years since the convention was drafted, and the U.S. played an important role in helping draft the treaty, and now it's time that the U.S. finally ratifies.
That CEDAW is real. There was a time when it was perceived as an aspirational document, words on paper, but what difference does this make to women around the world? And 30 years later, we can really see that it has an enormous impact. And for those that aren't actively engaging with it, it's in fact an opportunity lost, I feel.
I have watched women throughout the world use the CEDAW committee as an important arena for monitoring and challenging their government's policies. And I have thought so often, if we could have the U.S. there in the same way that we do with some of the other human rights treaties, where we could be saying, these are the things that are working and these are the areas that are not. It would again give us the power of the international movement that we are a part of behind. I think it's really important that we understand that we as women in the United States also have a lot to gain from this treaty, from the ratification of this treaty, that we have many areas in our own lives in which discrimination is certainly still a factor.
In the U.S., the rate is astonishingly high as well. 3 to 4 women die every single day. 3 to 4 women will have died today just giving birth to a child. And for a country that spends more on healthcare than any other country in the world, for a country that spends more on maternal health than any other portion of healthcare, it's really unacceptable for this to be the case. And if the U.S. or does ratify CEDAW, CEDAW contains within its framework what we would call the basic tenets around which we could prevent issues like maternal mortality being a reality here. It provides really specific guidelines around what women's health, particularly women's maternal health and children's health, should be guaranteed around, because it recognizes special sort of groups of people that need special attention.
One more concrete example. When we look at the stimulus money and what kind of industries it's going to, how is it helping women's employment? Because one of the things that CEDAW says is that we have the right to non-discrimination in the right to work. And so here we are in a moment of crisis where there's huge levels of unemployment across the country, but where the money is going to, is it helping women's employment? We talked about Rosie the Riveter, but now it's sort of, if you want stimulus money, you have to be Rosie the Insulator, right? Because that's where the jobs are going. And so how much money is going, for example, into daycare that will give huge numbers of women jobs in the daycare industry and allow a whole group of other women to go join the labor force? I mean, there's very specific ways we can look at CEDAW as a way to affect the macroeconomic policy.
I just want to say the U.S. has lots of good laws, but when you study them, there is a need to actually tweak those laws with CEDAW, and there is a need to bring international standards into play and to bring the U.S. more in line with international human rights.
I think ratifying CEDAW will galvanize a different kind of activism coming on women's issues that we haven't seen in the U.S. in a long time.
And that's what, to me, a global women's movement is about, which is that we understand our fate is intertwined with the fate of women around the world, and it's about both of us.